ordered this. Did you order this? Welcome to Real Takes.
Movie Break.
I'm Kimberly.
I'm Michael.
And today we are reviewing the film
Baby Girl.
This will be our spoiler review, so if you don't want spoilers, click the link in the description below where we won't go into too many details. For this review, we're going to go into a little more depth about what we liked, what we didn't like, and maybe some ideas for how we might improve the film as filmmakers. So please subscribe to our channel, click that notification bell so you never miss a review or live reaction, and we'll get started.
I liked the scene work between, especially the two leads, Harris Dickinson,
yes,
and Nicole Kidman, and I also enjoyed some of the stuff with Antonio Banderas. He just kind of makes me laugh, you know, like that opening sex scene is really, I thought was really kind of funny when he's like, I love you. And then she goes and watches porn or whatever it is she's doing in her little private world that she's crafted. Mm-hmm. And then I just thought the scene work between the two leads, I thought the way it was shot and some of the almost sort of improvisational stuff it seemed like they were coming up with in the moment. I don't know if I feel like a lot of it had to be planned because you have to have intimacy coordinators and all this stuff that you have nowadays. But it didn't feel like it. It felt like there was a lot of room. There were a lot of liberties that they were kind of willing to take with you. I watched a little interview with Antonio Banderas, and he was talking about doing the sex scene with Nicole, and they had to have all this trust, and there was so much trust between the two of them. It was very important that they had that. And then she was just kind of like, sort of almost like rolling her eyes, like her character.
I didn't see that interview
towards him in the
That's funny.
in the movie, because it's so funny because it always seems like he thinks he's the lead.
Yeah,
you know,
and he plays sort of like the third wheel in this film a little bit.
I was thinking about it. He's actually the superego.
Oh, yeah, I could
She's
see that.
the ego.
Uh-huh.
And Dickinson is the id.
I could see that analogy.
So there is a Jungian dynamic between
Yes.
those three characters.
I really loved the performances as well. I think Nicole Kidman, while some of the scenes were uncomfortable to watch, she really brought a lot of vulnerability and courage and like authenticity to these scenes. Not every actor in the world could perform those scenes with the way she did, and
or would be willing to.
So it took a lot of guts and courage to perform those scenes, and she brought a lot of vulnerability and authenticity. So I like that about her performance. Harris Davidson, his performance at some points, I was like, wow, he's really drawing me in. At other parts, I felt like he was flat. That might have been a deliberate choice to play borderline sociopathic, but his performance was a little confusing to me. Antonio Banderas is a great actor. You can't deny that. And I also liked that I like that this is a film that is thought-provoking, and some of it is controversial. Like, I can see some people hating this, some people loving it. So I like that it's a little bold, but not that bold, I would say. Not as bold as some people are making it out to be. And I agree with you. I think the cinematography is good. It was shot well.
So one of the things I was going to say is that the guy Harris Dickinson's part, it to me is a very interesting examination, because he is not doing he's not doing it like Robert Pattinson would do it.
Mm-mm.
He's not doing it like Leonardo DiCaprio or Ryan Gosling or any of those guys.
Yeah.
He's kind of the total inverse of those guys.
Yeah.
He's not even like he's sort of charming in a weird like what is he up to kind of way.
Yeah.
But like you say, it sort of comes off as flat. When you say flat, what I see is simple. I see a simple performance that's unique and is kind of off the grid from what most actors are taught.
Mm-hmm.
I see him doing stuff that's like, is he just screwing with her in this scene right now?
Yeah.
Like seriously, is he the actor coming in and doing stuff like when he tells her to sit on the edge of the table? A thought ran through my head where I was like, did he just come up with that on the spot? And did Nicole Kidman know he was going to do that?
Yeah.
And then I see her genuinely kind of go, like, am I going to do that? Are they still rolling? I guess I'm going to do that. I see that happening in the scenes.
It's possible.
Now, it could be that that's by design and they planned it all, right? But the way they're moving the camera, and this is why I like the way it's shot. A lot of it I feel like is on a rig, or you have a person who's basically it's a single camera just kind of following them, mm-hmm. and that person is just rolling and moving with them, and they can throw lines in and ADR stuff later on, or whatever. But they're doing stuff, and I bet you those shoots were grueling, and they were probably like really intense and probably contentious at times. Because I'll bet you, because I was thinking about it, like actually I think Harris Dickinson, I think his part would work better if he actually was ugly, actually ugly. The dog stuff, all of that is very unsettling. Because it's getting at this idea that we're all just animals.
So yes, so we'll get into what we didn't like about it.
Yeah. But what I'm driving at here, before we get into that, is that Nicole Kidman, contrasting with all of this, is a very sort of well-to-do. It's important how I look and how I present, and I have a certain class and a certain air about me, and all of these things. Yet she has that ability in some of these scenes to strip down, right? A friend of mine was saying, imagine if Meryl Streep played this part. And I just laughed. I laughed out loud at that thought because I was like, oh my God, if Meryl Streep played this part, it would be awful, right? Because she wouldn't have any ability to really go there, which I think Nicole Kidman, if you go back and look at her work in Eyes Wide Shut, is willing to debase herself. She's willing to actually
degrade herself
on film,
which is uncomfortable to watch, but also you have to kind of respect that what she's willing to do for her art, because it takes a certain amount of courage to degrade yourself like that, to play that kind of character and to play it real. I do believe her performance. I thought her performance was very believable. So I will give her that. One of the other things I like, before we get into what we didn't like, is some of the sex scenes. So the movie did subvert my expectations to an extent, because the trailer makes it seem like this erotic thriller that's supposed to sort of be erotic. And the sex scenes to me weren't erotic, which I was sort of delightfully surprised at certain moments. Certain moments I was like, okay, this is kind of funny because the sex scenes are a little more realistic than erotic. Like, for instance, the awkward scene where they're trying to figure out how to hook up, right? What each other wants. They're trying to figure out their power dynamic and what's actually good. Like, he tells her, get on your knees. And she's like, what? No. And then he's like, wait, is that what you want? I don't know how to. And then she almost does, and then she runs out. Then she runs back, and she starts trying to kiss him. And then he's like, wait, no, I don't want it like that. I don't want it like that. And then he tells her to go stand in the corner. So she stands in the corner. And it's kind of funny because it's like they're trying to figure out their kinks.
The theater was laughing at that point.
Yeah.
When he puts her in the corner.
And then she's turning around kind of laughing. But part of that scene work, it felt more realistic than I imagined
That
it
scene
would
was
be.
15 minutes long.
Yeah, and I think it was like a lot of it was just like one shot too, which is impressive. And then the part where she like turns around and then he's like treating her like a dog or whatever. That was funny for me on different levels because I actually filmed a parody recently that I wrote and produced to make fun of people with weird kinks like that in a sense, in a parody. I was doing similar stuff that Nicole Kidman was doing, so I was laughing about it. I was like, this is just like what I did, but it was meant to be really, really funny and absurd and ridiculous. And it kind of felt that way watching it in the theater. Like, this is so silly. He's treating her like a dog. But what's interesting is that some people genuinely enjoy that. That kind of treat me like a dog thing, right? So I feel like if you're one of those people, you will like this movie because it speaks to you. It speaks to women who are sexually repressed and not comfortable admitting that, you know, or, yeah.
Well, I also think it speaks to one of the things she does, Nicole Kidman playing this part, and I think she should get an Oscar nomination for this part.
I think she did get like a nomination already. Like
no question.
Yeah.
I honestly, I think it should come down to her and Demi Moore, and I kind of wonder if she should win over. I think Demi Moore would get it. I don't know what else is up for Best Actress, but I do think that she could definitely win Best Actress for this, or at least get nominated. But she does this thing where she both wants it and doesn't want it simultaneously, and that's working at all times. It's firing on all cylinders at every moment. Where which you just said, she runs away, comes back. You know, she's constantly pushing and pulling.
Yeah.
She tells him, "Don't ever come near my family again," and then she comes into his where he works.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Get out," or whatever.
Yeah.
There are these constant sort of little games that are being played. It's not really. There's no real sex scene between him and her. There's in a montage.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing is more the build up, the seduction, the foreplay. We're seeing all the foreplay.
Yeah.
We're seeing all the stuff that she has wanted so badly that she can't get from Antonio Banderas whatsoever. There is no word like at one point she puts a pillow over her face.
That part was kind of funny too.
And she wants Antonio Banderas to touch her while she has a pillow over her face. And Antonio Banderas is like, I can't like this.
I feel like a predator.
I feel like a villain.
I'm violating you like a villain.
He says he feels like a villain.
Which is funny because any guy who's like nice and kind of psychologically healthy would probably say the same thing.
I feel like a villain.
You know?
She wants a villain, and what the film does very elegantly at the very end is she finds out that he's got a job in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And that guy's like, "Oh, you had something to do with that," or whatever.
This other guy who works with her tries to come on to her.
Yeah, he's trying
like,
to.
Oh, so you did that with him? What are you gonna do with me now?
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is that the film does this thing where at the end the Dickinson character is gone. He's halfway across the world, but he's not really gone. Right? Because she's still thinking about him.
He will live forever in her mind. She's thinking
about him.
She's thinking of him treating her like a dog.
So
that's the only way she can be sexually fulfilled.
And I'm not really sure why the film is called Baby Girl. I guess because there's a play on there's a childhood developmental thing or something in there.
I have a theory about that. That's a good question. I have a theory that it's sort of like her rebirth, her sexual rebirth. She's finally like rebirthing herself with this young guy that's way younger than her. And I also think like that's sort of like something like it's about people that are into like being submissive versus dominating, right? That power play. So Baby Girl is very much like I'm dominating you kind of thing. So
right.
It makes sense.
I like that guy. He's like 30 years old, but he plays and acts really young,
like 25.
Like he wears the wife beater and he kind of dances around, and he has a certain he activates the right part of his brain throughout the performance. So he comes off and just seems very like I'm young and what? And she's like, I don't want to hurt you. And he's like, hurt me? You can't hurt me. I'm fine. I'm good.
It's like I have power over you.
Or he's at the rave with her or whatever and all that stuff. Yeah. And his character is sort of like, it's almost like he's just there to sort of say little bits of philosophical, like when he's talking about that's an outdated way to look at sexuality, or like all of his lines of dialogue seem to be sort of like the film trying to get across some sort of philosophical underbelly that it's trying to throw at you.
Yeah.
And the Nicole Kidman's character, she's the thing that holds the whole thing together. Without her, like you said, you would not follow it because you'd be like, I don't care. But it's because it's Nicole Kidman, we're kind of like, whoa, she's going there. Wow, okay. Well, I guess we'll give it to you, 'cause she did that. So
for me, even though it was Nicole Kidman, I still didn't care that much about the character because the whole conflict is just like this, nearly 60-year-old woman who can't orgasm and can't communicate to her husband of 19 years. Like, you would think after 19 years they would have figured it out. Like, why can't she just honestly, like, communicate? Like, problem solved. Communicate, problem solved. Like, it's such a simple problem that you could easily solve, but it makes it seem like it's this deep, emotionally complex thing where...
it's not. It's not emotionally complex at all.
But that's what the movie makes it seem like. It's
well, I can tell you exactly why. Because if she tells him that, then she'll probably lose him, and she wants to have her cake and eat it too.
Yes, which is not a character you necessarily care about that much, because she can't just be open and honest with her husband. And we're supposed to feel sorry for her just because she can't communicate to her husband her sexual preferences. Like, it's just, it's just not high enough stakes to really care that much.
They even say at one point in the movie that the stakes have to be high. I have to be able to lose something.
Well, that's like it's like, oh, poor me. I have to feel like I'm in a dangerous situation. Like, I could lose. So the only way she can be sexually fulfilled is if she's taking a big risk losing her family.
That's an interesting scene though to me, because when she's talking to Antonio Banderas about what she did,
he's like, I don't. Yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is during that scene, she's telling him, but she's also lying several times in that confession.
Yeah.
Because he's like, more than once? And she's like, no, just once.
Yeah.
So she actually lies while she's trying to tell him the truth.
Yeah, it's a partial truth. She's like partially confessing.
She's an unreliable narrator at that point. My main issue with the movie is that actually it doesn't go far enough. It actually kind of chickens out at times, I felt. Now, I think that they were thinking to themselves, "Oh, we'll be tasteful, we'll be elegant with this or that." I'm like, "No, you just had her on the floor saying that she's going to pee."
Yeah.
At one point. Go further. What else you got? Is that all you got? Is that all I'm getting here? Because it's cool that they're taking it to this level, but you can go past that. You can go beyond.
Yeah.
And the trailer makes you think it's going to
go beyond.
The trailer makes you think that guy is going to end up being a total fatal attraction. Like, he's going to ruin her life and do all this and play her and do all this crazy stuff. And really, he just sort of leaves. Yeah. And he's like, whatever.
It was a bit anticlimactic in that way, but not in like the climax way. But I mean, I think I do like the humor in there, that they it's kind of very darkly humorous at parts. What I didn't like is that we don't get a whole lot of backstory and explanation about why she is the way she is. Like, there's a clue, like there's a moment where her assistant asks her how she grew up, and she was like, oh, I grew up with like cults or something. But that's all we get, is that, like, okay, but how does that explain why she has these sexual preferences, why she is this way? And we also don't get a full explanation about who the intern is. and why he is the way he is. We don't know really anything. We never really know much about him at all.
It's not that kind of movie.
Yeah.
Like a more like Sofia Coppola, if she made this movie, would do all that. We would get the backstory,
which I would appreciate more.
And this is my final criticism. Underneath it all, there's really no real feelings between Nicole Kidman and Dickinson. You know, and I think that in order for the film to really work, and really kind of reach across, like the way it is, I think it's like really great performance by Nicole Kidman and everybody else, but she should get an Oscar nom. But that's really it. It's like, oh, that's that movie that she won the Oscar for, or whatever. But what it could have been is a very interesting sort of like really strange sort of love story somehow. And you actually could have figured out some way to pull it in and get really personal and actually really meaningful with it. But the film is kind of anti that sentiment.
Yeah.
It's kind of nihilistic.
Yeah.
In many ways. It's sort of saying none of it means anything. It's just, you know, what I'm doing this with you now and I'm going to do this with so and so later. You know, that's kind of what the film is sort of driving at is you know, maybe none of this means anything and it's just people have these proclivities. So
I think the messaging gets a little muddled. Like, are we supposed to feel happy for her character, for her sexual liberation, that she's finally able to be fulfilled? And are we supposed to be happy for her that she, you know, and the way it ends when she's imagining herself as a dog is kind of funny, but it's also sort of like, are we supposed to interpret this as like all women just want to be treated like dogs? That's what all women really want? Like, all women are dogs? Like, what is this trying to say? So if I were to improve the film, I would, one, give the characters more development, explain why they are the way they are a little bit more, and I would show the consequences of her actions. She never really has any of that. I mean, yeah, Antonio Banderas gets mad at her, but then he forgives her. And I mean, she's willing to risk her children, her family, because she can't communicate her sexual needs, but there's no consequences for what she does, for the lies that she tells. So if I were to retell this film, I would show some more consequences. I was actually thinking that, oh, maybe she's toying with this unstable, because there were moments in the film where I thought, oh, he's really unstable. He's going to do something crazy. So I might have him actually do something crazy. I thought somebody might die. You know, I thought that would raise the stakes too. So I would raise the stakes in some ways and show that there are consequences for those actions. And also just kind of explain the psychology behind these power dynamics and why some people need these types of power dynamics. So
yeah, there are two possibilities. One, you layer the whole thing with there's a deep conflict and the consequence is, oh wow, they actually kind of fell in love with each other in a way, and because of their life situation and the circumstances, that can never be. And so it's kind of tragic, and so that could have been one, or B, you go the unfaithful route, which is the superior film, by the way, made in 2002 with Diane Lane, Richard Gere, and I can't remember the other guy. Very similar dynamic. Richard Gere is the Antonio Banderas part, and he, spoilers, kills Diane Lane's lover, and they have sort of it's ambiguous a little bit, but you can see that they've sort of developed something more than just a sexual relationship at that point.
It's a little deeper.
It's a deeper, and it's a much more sort of elegant film, and there are consequences, and it's a little bit more suspenseful and Hitchcockian or whatever. But this, there's really kind of nothing to be lost. It's just nothing really to be gained other than
she gets a climax. Yay! The whole movie is just a woman struggling to orgasm, and then she finally does.
So what's to be gained for me is, well, that was some entertaining 15 minutes there, another entertaining 15 minutes there, and I like watching actors do good scene work. that's something I enjoy that because I'm an actor. So I've been in class before and I've watched people do scene work and I'd be like, wow, and I can watch it all day. This is a movie where really the only thing I can really say about it is, wow, what great scene work they did there, where he's pushing the bowl of milk closer to her face and she's doing, sitting on the side of the table, and it's or the nerves or the palpitations or the little things that are going on between them. There's good listening going on between them. Good pinching and ouching, as we call it in Meisner. There's a lot of that happening, and I appreciate that. That's not lost on me. I think the script is decent, but ultimately, like I said, kind of goes nowhere. And there is that kind of final confrontation scene, and it's interesting. But yeah, I would have done either A, some kind of unrequited love thing happens, or B, someone dies. So 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I give it a 2.5 because it is good scene work, good performances. But overall, it's just a first world problem that's not that important. Why should I care? Kind of feeling. But if you love erotic thrillers, if you love Nicole Kidman, you'll probably enjoy it. Chances are you've already seen it if you're listening to our spoiler review. So let us know what you think of the film. Let us know if you think that we're right, if we're wrong, if you agree, disagree. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, let me know if you want to see my film with a similar parody scene that we talked about. Comment below and we'll talk about that. And in the meantime, let us know if there are any other films you'd like us to review and discuss. And stay real.
And have good takes.